After finalizing the design in Procreate, I've taken this into Blender and modeled it up, printed it out on my Elegoo Mars, and this is the result. There are some layer height things that you can see on the actual token, but they don't really translate once you do the casting of it. It's always a little bit weird to model this on a giant screen and then print it out. I'm still learning how the big version on my screen translates to a small token like this, but all in all, I'm pretty happy with the detail. Always a bit of a curiosity as to how much will hold on the actual token. So let's see how that goes. Full disclosure, I don't really know what I'm doing. I have successfully cast several things in pewter, but as it turns out, pewter is a hugely forgiving metal to work with. Brass, for me at least, has not been. That's kind of part of the appeal, though. It's tricky for me right now. I see people cast stuff in it all the time, and they know what they're doing. I absolutely don't. I'm trying to learn from them and learn from my own mistakes, of which I have made many, including this particular production right here. But that's the point. That's how I learn. So, in making these flasks, I am still trying to figure out pressure and the fluid dynamics of it. I'm used to thinking about fluid dynamics in terms of water or other things that just don't solidify or take forever to solidify, like epoxy. I can pretty well get epoxy to flow wherever I want it to go, but when you are working with molten metal at 1700 plus degrees Fahrenheit, and it can solidify within a few seconds of starting to pour, or several seconds, I guess, that makes things a little trickier. And again, I have a lot to learn on that subject. So what I am doing here is not what I will be doing in the future. I learned a lot from making this particular flask and pouring these. Things were a little too big. You would think that you could make some pretty big rails or vents or things like that on something so small, and I am finding out that that is not the case. And there is something to be said about making tools specifically for what you're doing. I had that copper pipe just laying around. It seemed like a good size to use for my vent and sprue, carving out a rail with a spoon. Also seemed like a good idea, and I'm pretty sure I've seen some other people do that technique successfully, but they were also pouring much higher quantities of metal into a bigger flask. So again, I don't really know. Hugely experimental here, and have a lot to change up, a lot of things to try, but we're gonna go and melt some brass and see what happens here. we've gone from design to 3D model and print to a first casting, which didn't turn out well. I only got one of the 4 pieces that I was going for. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm very much learning. Pretty much everything I did as far as getting the molten metal to the actual cavities to create the token was wrong, and I'm still very much refining that. But it was a really good learning experience, and I did get one reasonably usable one. That being said, I decided to try a second time, cast up some more, very different method, not that much better of results. I only got 2 of the 3, and since I already had one of these, I didn't try for another 4. I actually wanted to compare a bronze version of something that I had previously cast in pewter just for fun. Pretty happy with that, and excited to see that one patinaed. And I'm excited to see this one patinaed. But here is a good comparison. So this has the oxide layer on there. This is pretty much right out of the sand, cut off of the gate, and didn't really get much further before I realized I needed to try it again. But once it hits this stage, I typically clean it up. I'll sand down the edges and then jewel it with a ball peen hammer to give it that kind of beat up look. Clean up the back a little bit, makes stamping it easier, which I have yet to do for this one. And now this is ready for the ammonia vapor chamber patina process. So I will coat this with white vinegar and put a bunch of table salt on there, and then float it in a sealed container with ammonium vapors in there, just a little thin layer of ammonia, and leave it overnight, and it produces this really beautiful old looking patina. And then you just sand off the high points, brings out a lot of the detail. You can be really specific, as careful as you want or as loose as you want. Basically, I want these things to look like you pulled them out of a treasure chest, bottom of the ocean kind of deal. So we're going to do that. I'm really excited to see what this looks like when it's all done. Okay. These have been sitting in here for about 24 hours. Let's see what we got. So, looks like if you let it sit in the ammonia, my little holder had collapsed. That's kind of a bummer. So this was actually sitting down in the ammonia rather than just in the vapors. So that's gonna have to go back in. Same with that one. Not quite as bad. I don't know, we can clean this up and take a look and see what we've got here. This all here. Shit. Oh. Fruit Loop over there. Well, looks like a little brass dipped treat there. And basically, we'll just kind of go over it with some 000 steel wool and basically a Scotch-Brite pad, and just kind of take some of that high level stuff off of there and get the text to shine up a little bit. We'll try and get here a couple of things like the seal leaf and that solid highlight. And of course, the 20 miles. I suppose that is probably about where I would keep keep that. With the exception of the backside. So, I guess back in the bath it goes. Same with this one. Give it give our dig a little. It's kind of funny. All right, well. And some comparisons there. It's pretty aggressive, but I actually really like that one. Happy with how it turned out. Have that kind of come through a bit more. Yeah. There we go. That's how you make a token.